I'm always woken up at 3 a.m. by some noise. I guess this is 40. And I'm like, what was that? And then, it takes me hours. Oh, you haven't heard this yet because you weren't there Friday. So Thursday night, 3:30 a.m., still in that hotel that we stayed in for DPS, was woken up because I swear to God, either person on top of us or next to us, I'm not kidding you, Jordan, they were throwing furniture. It was so loud. And I was like, do I call the front desk? Does that make me a Karen? I mean, I was like concerned for their welfare, but then I just went back to sleep. I was like, well.
Did you ask Bianca, Sarah, or Hannah if it was one of them?
So Sarah went with it. No, well, Sarah was on the 8th floor too, like me. And she was like, oh my God, I woke up at 3 something too. And she's like, but I didn't know why. I just thought I woke up. I was like, it was because them fools was throwing furniture. So
the only time I wake up around then is because I feel like I put something wrong in the issue. I wake up and check it out.
In a cold sweat terror. Yeah, that's always fun. Well, so Harry's at the Texas package store deal. Is he like actually presenting or is he just watching Sarah?
I think he's speaking too.
Oh, okay. Because it sounded like he had an emergency bath time right before taking the stage.
Yeah, that was probably a much needed cleanup and also a little time to try and put his thoughts together for what the hell he was going to talk about. So
there's an emergency. I need to take a shower. Oh my God. Only Harry gets away with this shit, Jordan.
I'm glad he's at least aware of it.
Yeah.
A few days and he's like, oh, okay. It has been a few days. I need to do something. It doesn't go weeks at least. So
you mean for showering?
It could be worse is what I'm saying, Jen.
All right. We got Mr. Paul Chibe. Howdy, Paul.
Hey, how's it going? How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Long time no see.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Well, our fearless leader had to bow out today because I think he's speaking at the Texas Package Association show.
Yeah, I figured something was weird because he sent me an email like about 10 minutes ago. Oh, we got to get together for a beer. And I'm like, he must not remember that we're getting together in like 10 minutes.
He's forgetful. But he's riling up the Texas package store people today. So
yeah. No worries.
Like to welcome to BeerNet Radio, Paul Chibe, CEO of Pabst Brewing Company. Of course, you also spent a few years at AB as CMO and also leading some global confectionaries like Ferrero and Wrigley. So welcome to the show where all of your dreams come true. You've reached the pinnacle now.
Yeah. Hi, how are you? Good. Thanks for having me. And it's fun to be here this afternoon to check in and talk.
Absolutely. Cool. And nice to meet you, Rachel.
Hi, nice to meet you as well.
Cool. Well, let's do some, banter first. Paul, you're full-time San Antonio now, right? Like how long has that been the case?
I have been here since, I started at Pabst in December of 21. So I've been here for all intents and purposes since then, okay. But I moved officially in May of 20.
Okay, cool. And you have courtside tickets to the Spurs games and we can come.
I don't know about that. If we have them, no one has told me about it yet. So,
and you're moving your offices too, right? To the Soto, this cool new building downtown?
Yeah, we're moving to a new office in downtown San Antonio on Broadway. The great thing about the move is it's the first time in 50 years that the entire Pabst organization is going to be in one building.
That's cool.
And so even all the change in ownerships, all the change in locations, there's always been an office in San Antonio, and historically there was an office in Dallas, and then there's been other offices that kind of moved around: Milwaukee, Chicago, Los Angeles. And then when we got to San Antonio, we were in 2 sites, and now we're going to finally be in a proper corporate headquarters all together at the end of this year in November.
Cool.
Sweet. That building looks slick.
Oh yeah, it's a gorgeous site. We're on the 6th floor of the building. It has fantastic views of downtown San Antonio and then looking up at the Pearl. And then for the team, it's a bright, modern, facility. It's going to be great for collaboration, great for innovation, great for ideation. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Sounds like everything our office is not.
What office?
We have a shack. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the shack. I'm sorry. So we might just like have to all of a sudden say, yeah, we work here. We work at PBR.
Yeah.
Just kidding. All right. Well, let's get into it. PBR is having a fantastic year, right? In scans, it's up double digits, it accelerated in recent periods. So I think the obvious question is, how much of that has to do with people who came from Bud Light? How much of that has to do with this new, very cool Wade Boggs campaign that you guys have going on?
Well, let me jump in first and I'll talk about kind of the trend, and then I'll let Rachel talk about Wade Boggs. The thing that is important to look at, if you look at PBR and also just look at our company performance, is that really last summer and the summer of 22 is when we really started to see the improvement in our performance. So period to period, every period we started getting a little bit better. And then we really started to gain momentum as a organization and PBR as a brand in the beginning of 2023. And we had really good momentum going into April when, of course, you had the industry event with Anheuser-Busch, and that just brought an acceleration to our performance. Now, from an analytical basis, you're asking the $64,000 question because this is all part of the work that we're doing and preparing for 2024, making sure that we have, the right plans and the right programs in place to continue our success. The good news for us is analytically, we've uncovered that as a business in total, maybe about a third of the increase is related to the Anheuser-Busch issue. When you look at the rest of the performance, it's due to things that we ourselves are doing at Pabst. And, the example given, I think if I look at our year-to-date number on PBR, the PBR is up 13.2% year-to-date, and then is up 18% in the last 4 week and was up 20.5% in the 12 week. When you look at those numbers, you couldn't say, especially I would say the third since April, 1/3 of that increase. So if you're up 18%, okay, 6%, 6 points, 600 basis points of that is related to Anheuser-Busch. The other 12% is due to our own actions, which to me reinforces the strength of our brands and the strength of the things that we're doing, focus on the fundamentals to improve the performance of our business. And then I would also add, and I'll transition to Rachel, we've had amazing marketing. The team has done a great job. Really proud of what they have done with the Wade Boggs promotion and other things that are going on. So Rachel, if you want to talk about Wade.
I think it's always hard to isolate it out to just one thing or one campaign. But the metrics that we do see on this campaign give us a lot of confidence that it's, helped us go in the right direction. Wade as a person is just such an iconic baseball player, but he's got this kind of cross-generation appeal because of his career, but also he's got some kind of cult status with his appearances and It's Always Sunny. And there's a lot of legend around the guy himself. So we had a lot of fun leaning into that with the campaign. You can see it's evident people picked up on it on socials. That was some of our best performing content. The sentiment when we first launched the campaign, like on Twitter specifically, was 98% positive. And I don't know if you guys spend any time on Twitter, but not usually a very positive place. So overwhelmingly positive reaction from consumers. And it hit at a great time, to Paul's point. We've got some of the fundamentals, right. We fixed a lot of things on the brand. And so then putting out this campaign was kind of a cherry on top for us.
Cool. Walk me through how this whole Wade Boggs campaign came together, because at first, he was saying like, hey, that's modeled after me. What the heck, right? And then you brought him into the fold, and now it's this very like self-reverential, tongue-in-cheek, fun campaign. So tell me the backstory. Yeah,
I mean, it really came out of an internal brainstorm. We were thinking about how to, intersect PBR and sports, to do that in a way that feels, authentic to the brand. And so we were kind of just brainstorming potential partners, athletes, And one of our team members just offhand was like, "Oh, I feel like it'd be funny to work with Wade Boggs. Like, he's such a legend." And I was like, "Oh, let me Google what he looks like now, given he's retired." And it's like, "Oh, he kind of looks like Cool Blue." And so that is really like the genesis for the campaign. We thought it'd be fun to play off of this kind of historic asset the brand has used. And we realized looking into it, there's not really a backstory for Cool Blue. So we thought we'd have a little fun with playing on what that could be. And yeah, the first announcement of the campaign was Wade Boggs making an accusation essentially that he was Cool Blue and his identity was stolen. And so we had a lot of fun kind of tying that into a full story and wrapping a bow on it at the end.
Yeah, that's awesome. So there was never any real beef then. It was all contrived beef then. That's
although
cool.
we haven't very publicly admitted that. I think the story itself was so out there, people kind of assumed that to be the case. But yes, it was a contrived story for us to kind of weave Wade Boggs into the Pabst universe.
Nice. Well, Jay, I'll kick it off to you, but that's impressive.
Yeah. So obviously you had those marketing plans ready to rock. And, as the acceleration hit in April, did you do anything differently? Did you do anything different with marketing or pricing as, that kind of surge in demand kicked off?
No, we haven't done anything other than be aligned, so our pricing has been something that we've worked on, and we are now in a position where we're aligned with our competition, and, we're benefiting from that. And, there was some recent, articles about, that, Pabst pricing is down versus year ago. Those are all related to mix impacts, where because of the surge in volume, we're selling more big packs. And so it's a issue related to the mix we have today versus the mix we have a year ago. But when you look generally at our packs, what we charge for a 6-pack is what our competitors charge for a 6-pack. What we charge for a 12-pack is what they charge for a 12-pack, and so on. So it just is the big volume increase has changed our mix, and that optically makes it look like our average price is down. But when it comes to our pricing, we're lined up, and there's nothing unusual or unique that we're doing there.
Right. Okay. So no pricing levers being pulled, just people buying differently.
Buying bigger packs.
Gotcha. And just following up on that acceleration, you mentioned some trends, but can you just refresh me? Are you still kind of seeing a migration towards PBR and maybe even some of your, local Lone Star and all that, or has that kind of started to slow down a little bit?
No, I mean, for us, the performance has remained very strong. And just to give you a sense of the year-to-date number and the last 4 weeks. So on Pabst Blue Ribbon, year-to-date, we're up 13.2%. In dollars, in the last 4 weeks, we were up 18%. On Rainier, year-to-date, we're up 14.6%. But in the last 4 weeks, we're up 17.1%. Lone Star Red, in the year-to-date numbers, up 10.2%. And in the 4-week, Lone Star Red is up 16.9%. Lone Star Light is up 30.8% year-to-date. And the last 4 weeks, we were up 51%. Old Mill year-to-date's up 8%. And in the last 4 weeks was up 11.8%. Old Style year-to-date up 13.5%, and the latest 4 week up 12. And then Stroh's year-to-date up 25.1%, and then the last 4 weeks up 29.5. So, we are having a good year, and the performance of the business is strong year-to-date, and in some instances even getting stronger in the more recent periods.
Yeah, firing on all cylinders, it sounds like.
Yeah, very happy with the performance.
Well, so if we didn't mention this already, obviously you said obviously that's organic, it's marketing. What else is, those are some huge numbers across the portfolio. How are you doing that?
Well, I think it comes really simple. I don't think that, I think one of the things that I don't want to portray is, that, we have some magic formula here. It's about watching the fundamentals, and it's about paying attention to the fundamentals. And so, myself and my leadership team are all about making sure, we have the product where it's supposed to be, it's priced where it's supposed to be, we have the distribution we're supposed to have, we're communicating appropriately to our retailer and our wholesalers, so we're trying to improve all those things. And we have learned, over the years, and I've got a very experienced leadership team in place, that when you execute the fundamentals, you can do quite well. And that's what we're focused on. And we're trying to do things right for the long term, and really build a very strong foundation upon which we can continue to consistently grow our business.
Yeah. How about draft? Because that's been really challenged. Do you guys seen any green shoots there? Have you come back from pre-COVID levels with draft?
We have seen improvement, but we're not at the 2019 levels yet. And Rachel, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the most recent updates I've seen, is that the draft business is recovering a bit, but I don't believe we're at 2019 on a volumetric basis.
Yeah, correct. Still a little slow to get back to that pre-COVID level.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty industry wide there. So that's not specific to you guys. But Rachel, I'll come back to you too. What else can we expect for this Wade Boggs campaign in the future? I mean, the lore around him is so large. My husband obviously is into baseball. He used to play a little ball. And so he's told me all these legends about like the 100 beers he had on a cross country flight. I mean, the stewardesses would hand him cases instead of beers. So there's a lot you can do with this, right?
Yeah, there's a lot we can do with it. And that's partly why we intentionally, in the second sort of phase of that campaign, didn't commit one way or another. We didn't say that Wade Boggs is cool blue. We didn't fully meet his demands. And that's sort of us leaving that open to have a little bit more fun with it down the road. We do have the partnership with him all throughout the year and potentially into the future. So we've got some appearances, some PR and social kind of activations happening through the remainder of the year.
Cool. I will say, I think it's proof that beer is good for you. He looks pretty damn good for 65 or whatever he is.
Yeah,
man.
Right. He's got the
Jay,
secret
of blue or something, I don't know. Jay, I think you had some cocktails questions.
Yeah. So we've talked a good bit about beer, but let's talk about some of the F&B side of the business. Jack Daniel's Country Cocktails had a tremendous 2022. How they fared this year amid some copycat competition coming in.
I'll tell you in 1 second. On a year-to-date basis, looking at ADCC, we're up 21.4%. In the last quad week, we were up almost 9%. So we continue to perform really well. I think, there's a lot of competition, not only in copycats, but just in general. You have a lot of entrants that are taking trial volume out of the category. Our focus is to continue to build the packs the right way, focus on the long term, and kind of make sure that we cement JDC as or Jack Daniel's Country Cocktails, as we call it. We want to cement that business with the right focus over time, because we do believe with the power of the Jack Daniel's trademark, we have something that's unique. It's the number one global spirits trademark in the world, and we're able to use it on this proposition. And I think it helps us a lot. And we have the opportunity to have an evergreen platform on Jack Daniel's. And then we've also launched El Jimador in some states. And again, the focus is on the fundamentals, and the focus is on doing things right for the long term. So we spent a lot of time qualifying the proposition and qualifying the liquid to make sure that we had the right brand with the right concept and with the right liquids. And, the liquid that we're bringing, they're fantastic, they're delicious, and quantitatively, they're proven to be better than competition. And so this is something that we really feel is important as we go forward with innovation. We want to do the innovation from here and forward the right way. And remember, at the end of the day, you got to have the right brand with the right product, and they have to be really thoroughly vetted and have have winning brands and winning products so that you can seed in the market.
Is there any rules to stay or things to stay away from? Because, I feel like the aisles are littered with malt-based cocktail brands that hadn't done well. You guys have done very well. Are there any things that you guys completely avoid when you're doing this type of product?
That's a pretty big and open-ended question. So, I think that what we're trying to avoid is doing things in a rush and doing things without the liquid and the concept and the brand being properly vetted. So I think this is something that's a big issue in our industry overall, is that, when you look at the innovation, and if you compare it to other industries that I've worked, one of the things that's a challenge for Bev Alc is the whole notion of there's not really a barrier for someone making a copy and making an immediate copy and rushing it to market right after you. And the problem becomes that you have this big churn of innovation and among the suppliers. There's just constant churn. And so the thing for me that I think is an interesting question for us are the behaviors of the industry players leading there to be a healthy industry. And through all the churn and through all the kind of, what's the flavor of the month activity, I think people would be much better served from an industry standpoint, being focused on the innovation that they're doing, trying to create differentiated innovation and staying focused on it versus just continuing to churn the shelf, which doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help our wholesaler, doesn't help our retailer, and certainly doesn't necessarily help the industry players, because I think, and this is stuff that we've seen, is that a lot of companies have done a lot on innovation, but haven't made any money doing it. Right. And at the end of the day, we're here to build brands and make profit.
Yeah. I know a lot of the companies have, to your point, with all their innovation trials, they've refined their scale up proposition, right? Like, so we'll put it, here, and then we'll check off these metrics and then we'll make it bigger. Do you guys, when you do new innovations, do you have a particular seed program, or do you just make a few big bets?
I think we are in the process of watching our performance in smaller launches and seeing how these perform, and there's metrics that you want to watch in terms of trial, repeat, second repeat, third repeat, making sure that your product is understood, that your liquid is appreciated, and once you have, quantitative confirmation of that in a smaller place, then you can make a bigger bet. But we, like many others, are doing that because it helps you bring understanding before you make the big investment in a national launch.
Yeah. Is there any white space left anywhere anymore? I feel like it's getting harder, right?
Well, I think that is the question. I think that, is the white space focusing on the core? Maybe that's the white space. And I think that maybe for us, the immediate opportunity around our core business and Jack Daniel's Country Cocktails and now Humidor provides us plenty of opportunity for growth, and we'll see where the white space comes from.
Can you give us any insight into your relationship with Brown-Forman, and is there anything else in the works, and how did those products come about, and how will possible new innovation? Is it something where it's like, hey, that's a product we'd like to work on, or is Brown-Forman saying, hey, here's a product that we think y'all could knock it out of the park with, or a brand?
There's they're a fantastic, Brown-Forman is a fantastic partner. They work very closely with us, but the nature of the relationship is on the new things that Pabst has the responsibility of developing those things and developing the proposition and the liquid, working with Brown-Forman, but we're responsible for doing those things. So like if you taste El Jimador, that's work of Pabst people working very closely with our innovation and brewing teams and R&D, and we come up with those liquids and get alignment with Brown-Forman on those. So they're leveraging the expertise that we have in the FMB space, in the FMB product development, and just the go-to-market model that we bring to bear in FMBs. The RTDs are Brown-Forman's. So like Jack and Coke is their proposition. They have their partnership. They have their route to market. That's separate. But when it comes to new brand ideas or new propositions, there are things that we dialogue back and forth with them on. There's things that we come up with that they're happy to let us pursue. There's other things that we come up with, maybe not so much. But ultimately, the relationship is one where we work together to kind of open up what new doors we're going to go after. But then once the door is opened, it's Pabst's obligation to go get the product developed and the marketing plan and the packaging and everything else.
Interesting. And you guys would only stay in the malt lane with them there, right?
Yeah. Pabst is their FMB partner.
Right.
Brown-Forman has the RTDs.
Yeah.
The
Right.
spirit
That makes
RTDs.
sense. Yeah. Well, I want to switch gears for just a second, because of course I can't let you off this call without asking you another, however many $1,000 question, or million at this point. Obviously you were once CMO at AB, and obviously we find ourselves in this year of this Black Swan event. If you were there, what do you make of all of it? What would you do if you were in AB shoes right now to help deal with the Bud Light fallout?
Well, I think the thing is that, that's a sensitive subject, and I have to be respectful
Sure.
to Michelle and the team at Anheuser-Busch. Those guys were always good guys to me when I was there, so it's really not my place. I think I can comment on this, though, is that I do have a concern about category health. The impact that this has on category health, because a lot of data is showing that drinkers are leaving the category. They're not necessarily going to the Pabst portfolio or our other competitors' portfolios. They're choosing to step out of the business. And I think that this is something that we as an industry have to pay attention to, because I think that overall, if I really am honest about how things have gone in the beer industry, we have not done a good job creating an industry with a healthy business. And one of the things I like to say is that a healthy industry is the accumulation of good decisions by the industry leaders. And we're not in a position. You have declining volume in the segment. Revenue is a factor of pricing. But I do believe that is more to do with decisions that the industry is making than anything that is fundamentally problematic with beer as a product. I think beer has tons of advantages. From a calorie profile standpoint, sessionability standpoint, ABV standpoint, better for you standpoint, even though that's not really talked about all that much. There's a lot that is right about beer, and what's right about beer extends over time. So one of the things that, one of the thoughts I want to bring to the industry is, let's just not surrender to this view that the volume has to decline. And I think that's a very dangerous place to be. I think there's too much acceptance in the industry that, it's a foregone conclusion that the volumes are in decline. And there was a moment like this in the 60s when August Busch III took over and was the leader of Anheuser-Busch. Spirits was on the ascent, and you had beer being the challenger. And so and they rose to the occasion. The industry rose to the occasion. You hear about the great battles of August Busch III, Mr. Murphy, I can't remember his first name, who was the Philip Morris executive that went into Ron Miller. But the competition and created a healthier industry that eventually caused it to gain share leadership and share requirements and set the path for the next 20, 30 years. And so the thing is that for me, I think let's focus on industry health. Let's not accept that beer has to be in decline. And let's not forget that, we shape the destiny of this industry, and there's no reason why it should be where it is.
Right. Well, I'm curious, where is all that share going? The assumption is that it's going to spirits. How much of it is maybe people not drinking or drinking less? How much of it do you think is going into cannabis or Cali sober,
Well, I think that there's a there's a mix of all of those things. There is a lot of evidence of reduced consumption. There's evidence of movement into cannabis, but I personally believe that affects more craft than mainstream lager, given the geographic orientation of where those two things happen. So, I think it's a mix of things, but, I think that it's, again, not a foregone conclusion, though, that it has to be that way. And I think, you're seeing a lot of scientific evidence against cannabis coming out. There's recent stories about having negative impacts on people's genetics, among users. So I think, this mythology that cannabis is better than beverage alcohol, I think will soon show that's not the case over time. And I think that, this cultural history, this rich cultural history that we have for thousands of years with humans experiencing, beer and wine, I think that will kind of come back to light. That's probably the more natural way for people to relax and enjoy company.
Yeah, I got one last question for you. Just how's the transition to city going? Did the awesome year y'all are having right now throw anything off, or everything still slated for completion by next year?
Yeah, so let me talk about the city side, then I'll just talk about inventory in general. So the transition to city is on track. It's the timeline that we developed. It's a multi-year timeline, is exactly where it's supposed to be. And we're being very methodical about how we transition. With respect to how recent events and our performance have challenged things, it has put pressure on our primary supply partner that we're currently with. And, they're under pressure on their own supply. We're under pressure on our supply, and due to the increase in demand. So that's something we are working through. We're spending a lot of time and resources on that to try to make sure we get as much beer as we can for our wholesaler and retail partners to take advantage. But it's something we're watching and having to work through, and so, I'm really proud of the team in terms of how they're managing the city transition, and also how they're handling, kind of the tough circumstances related to the challenge we have on inventory. But again, let me remind, it's a good problem to have when you're selling almost everything you can make. So, let's hope that we all get to enjoy this long into the future.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, that's all we had. Any other parting thoughts, Rachel, Paul?
No, I think just the key takeaway is, Pabst, we're on the move. I think you saw the great numbers that we have. I emailed them to you. We're performing extremely well, and I'm really pleased at the progress that we've made so far.
Right. Well, cheers. I'll drink to that. Some PBRs this week for sure.
I'm wearing my PBR shirt today.
Nice.
Thank you, Jordan. Very cool one too.
Represent.
Can't wait to check out the new place too.
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
we'll have to have you.
Oh, it's when you go inside, it's awesome. The layout, the views, where we're gonna have our bar in the office, it's gonna be fantastic. You're gonna dig it big time. It's gonna be very cool.
When do y'all get there? When do you?
Like November, second week in November is kind of the time when we'll move.
Nice. Very cool.
All right. Well, Harry will be there waiting. He'll help you, man.
Oh, yeah. I'll have a cold one on the bar as soon as he arrives.
Nice.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank
All right,
you.
take care. Bye.
Thanks.